Back from the bye week, I'm Julia Gintof, here with Coach Mora. We're rested, we're rejuvenated, and I'm sure these guys are ready to get after Boston College this weekend. Coach, it's been nearly a month since you've played at home. Since that exciting win over Fresno State, I'm sure you're excited to be back at the Rent this weekend. How's the team looking after a little bit of time off? Was it good for you guys?
It was really good for our players. They needed a chance to reset. We were the only team in college football that had played 8 games without a break. And it had been a long camp, and I think it was really good for them to just step away for a minute and catch up on their studies, spend some time with their family, sleep in a little bit, and it came out this week with great energy.
You've had that time now to reflect on the season so far, and I'm sure it's easy when you're watching the film to pick apart those things that you want to do better, but you also want to find those things that you're doing well, and obviously to keep doing that, putting these guys in the best positions for success. What are some of those things that you've seen work and that you want to build upon for these last stretch of games?
Well, the key is putting your players, like you said, in the positions where they're doing what they do best, and then doing it consistently. And the way you build consistency is through repetition, and so it's really minor things. It's how you play a certain coverage or how you play a certain block, or in protection, how you pass off a certain, pass rush game, or in your run game, how you're fitting and where your hands are supposed to be. So it's all these little particulars that you really are able to focus in on in a bye week, because you're not preparing for an opponent. And so what you do is you go back and you say, okay, what do we need to really focus on here to make us better regardless of who we play? And we had a chance to do that.
Now for this week, you're up against an Eagles team that's faced some pretty tough competition in the ACC. I feel like some of those scores don't reflect the talent that they have, specifically the Zay Flowers, Phil Jerkovic connection. Zay Flowers is really a pro-level receiver. He can create that separation. The pass game can be dangerous. How do you go about preparing your defensive backfield for him and just that offense as a whole?
Well, they are a dangerous offense, and you mentioned it. They've played some really good teams, and they've found success. Like if you watch the Louisville game, they got after Louisville offensively and ran the ball well, threw the ball well. With regards to Zay, he's one of those guys you can't stop. You can only hope to contain him. He's that good. And you mentioned an NFL level receiver. I think that's an absolute. This kid's special. He reminds me of Isaac Bruce, who's a Hall of Famer in terms of the way he's built. Isaac was probably a little bit bigger, but in terms of the way he's able to lower his center of gravity and make cuts, and his body control and his change of direction. And he's got great hands. The kid does not, he dropped one ball this year that I've seen, and it was like, a stunner to him and everybody else. I think the whole crowd just went, huh? Like, that doesn't happen. The guy's really special. I really like watching him play. I'm not sure that I want to defend him, but I love watching guys like that play football.
Speaking of receivers, I know you'd mentioned that Keelan Marion might be good to go within these next few weeks, returning from that collarbone injury. If and when we are able to see him return, how key will that be for opening up the offense, potentially gaining some consistency in the pass game, especially now that Zion Turner's getting more confident in his arm?
I think it's really big, and it's not just adding a weapon and somebody that Zion will feel comfortable throwing to and go win the 50-50 ball and can push the ball down push his routes down the field, but his presence will open things up for other players, other receivers. He'll open things up for the run game as well. And so we're excited to have him back. Cam Ross is starting to work again, so there's a chance we'll get him back at some point. And anytime you can add weapons, it's a good thing.
Going back a little bit, when you looked at that Ball State film, specifically that second half, a lot of penalties, cost you guys a lot of yards. Was there any cause for concern there? Has there been communication about that this week, or are you sort of shrugging that off? Because penalties haven't really been a big issue for you throughout the majority of the season.
Yeah, we don't shrug anything off. We addressed it last week. Ball State is so far in the rearview mirror. We couldn't even find it if we wanted to. We're not thinking about that. We addressed the penalties. Penalties that are not aggressive in nature are the ones that bother me. False starts bother me. Not lining up correctly. Some of those calls, you can call into question. But the ones that we can control, we have to do a better job of controlling. We didn't, and we've addressed it, and we need to be better going forward.
Well, I'm certainly excited to be back in East Hartford this weekend. The Huskies square up against Boston College for their homecoming game on Saturday. Kickoff is at noon on CBS Sports Network. Be there. Coach, thanks once again.
Thank you.
Best of luck.